my second live today, and I'm just feeling hot and spicy, guys. Particularly because I've been trying to get this lovely lady in my interview space for What's Your Story for well over a year, really, since it came to me. I was inspired to do it, but I was finally able to nail down the amazing Lindsay Hite of Show Your Spark Studio, and I am excited to learn all the things about Lindsay and how she shows up in service to the world and how you stepped into your passion and purpose. So thanks for being here.
Oh my goodness. It's such a privilege and honor to share this space with you. Thank you for amplifying me on your platform. This is cool.
It is looking like an 80s fashionista, but I don't even know if you're like an angel with the wings in the back or
Yeah.
I feel like a Pat Benatar vibe. Anyway, I'm loving the vibe.
Well, I feel like the audience should know that we're friends off camera. So we vibe. I showed up in my fullest version of myself, and Kerri has been instrumental in helping me tap into that over the years. So thank you so much. Gratitude and love to you and what you do.
Oh, I received that and I love that so much. And it's so funny because just prior to jumping onto this interview, I was working with a client and I was saying how much I was excited for this interview and how in awe and how much admiration I have for you, and which is why I was excited to be here. So it's going to be a party of mutual love and respect.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So show you spark, Linz. Tell me how the vision came to mind to create a studio that really helps empower women.
You know, it's so, of course, perfect timing that we're having this discussion today because it was 8 years ago today, after Election Day 2016, when the vision came to me for Show Your Spark. I was feeling defeated. I didn't know what to do next. In that moment, I was finishing up a kickboxing class that was really geared towards helping women feel powerful. Of course, men were invited to the kickboxing class, but at that time, it was all these badass women surrounding me, 6 o'clock in the morning at a boxing gym in Boston. The lights were low. We were covered in sweat. And at the time, I had been 10 years into a wedding photography career, loving it. But at that moment, I had this vision when we were during cool down, closed my eyes, the song came on, I started crying. And I had this vision of a light radiating from the chest of every woman around me, like this golden beam of light. And I thought to myself, it's not over. I have just begun. This is my mission to help women tap into their own power. And how amazing would it be if we could all see our own unique power and gifts and step into that and walk with that and use that in our life instead of feeling disempowered and stuck and like, what can I do now? Instead, I took that as my mission, my permission slip, my vision to, okay, this is what you can do. Help other women see their own potential, their own true power that's unique and authentic to them. So in that moment, 2016, I knew I had to pursue it. I started it little by little as I could, fit it into my already busy schedule. And then fast forward to 2018, I was shopping for studios, opened it in 2019. Pandemic happened. We stayed strong. We pivoted. We adjusted. We made a lot of improvements during the downtime, and we're still here 4 years later. So 5 years in the studio.
Woo, woo, I love that. So you got this inspiration during a moment of struggle for you, right? Which I love that you shared because I did a live earlier today about the fact that all of my greatest accomplishments have come on the back of personal angst, suffering, and struggle. So you had this vision, but then you said something beautiful about giving yourself permission. And can you elaborate more on, allowing yourself to step into what felt right for you rather than what you knew, because that takes courage.
Yeah. Well, having photographed weddings for 10 years. That was the only thing that I had done. I graduated art school with my degree in photography right in the middle of the recession of 2008. And I jumped in pretty quickly into this beautiful and rewarding career that had supported me thus far. That was the whole like bubble and infrastructure. So to think about having a studio dedicated to this niche of helping women feel empowered and beautiful within these walls, but not just within the walls, but when they walk out of the walls too and into the world, it was a lot to wrap my head around. Like,
Yeah.
I was also just really intimidated by studio photography. I was a destination wedding photographer, so I was used to like just technically making things work out in the world, whether it was on the streets of New York or, in St. Lucia in the middle of a beautiful scene. I didn't know how to create it from scratch, but I didn't let that stop me because I start with the person and I started with what would help that person shine. So I actually rented a space at the time. There was an app called Breather, and it was like Airbnb for offices. So to just try it out, I rented an office in the financial district of Boston with one window, one couch. I just wanted to see if I could do it and make something I was proud of. So I reached out to a friend of mine and she was down to try it. And I was like, this is magic. I'm so excited. So I knew I was hooked.
That's amazing. And then, so again, what I love you shared with the audience and super important is you had this knowing, right? This insight that you knew you needed to follow, but it didn't go from zero to the Spark Studio, right? You first kind of set the stage to allow yourself to recognize, oh, yeah, this feels really good. This feels yummy to me. And then you took micro steps until you could look for the studio and make that transition into, being a photographer who really helps support women see their already intrinsic power, but maybe they don't know it.
Oh, yeah. We were schlepping around, going to people's houses, photographing in basement apartments for like a year before I got the studio. And that's honestly what did it for me because I was moving people's like air conditioning units, laundry, cat toys, whatever, out of the way so that they could make these photos where they felt powerful. But they started by greeting me at the door and apologizing for their space. And I'm like, this is not the energy. I want people to walk in and feel like they can leave all that behind and just bring with them what serves them and have this be a really sacred, beautiful, hospitality oriented experience. Like, I've always loved staying at a gorgeous hotel where every detail is taken care of. And I wanted to give that to my clients. So it was so multi-layered and it's a lot to take on when you just have like a little spark of an idea. But I think the most important thing is taking small, inspired action little by little, and that opens the pathway to the next, to the next.
Yeah. And without, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but without having an expectation of how it's all really gonna unfold, because at the end of the day, I'm sure you're learning even now the nuances and the subtleties that just elevate the experience for your clients so that, because that's how we grow and expand. It's never sedentary.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been telling my team and myself since August, this period, this fall is an intense learning portal for me. Just every single challenge is a lesson and it's a chance to like reframe. Okay, I've encountered this. How can we improve upon that for the next time? Not outliers, but seeking trends and like what is the data from all of these client interactions telling me where I need to adjust? And, you know, so for example, right now we're relaunching our approach to branding photography for small businesses. And I've adjusted for that after having a lot of experience in that realm. I'm humble enough to say, you know what? I think I was focusing on not quite the right elements, and I'm going to bring in this much so that my clients can have a better experience, do more pre-planning, set them up for more success the day of their session so it can be more full-bodied, so always improving.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I think it takes humility every day, and even not every day, in every encounter, to really be able to meet love where it's at. And that's what I love about Show Your Spark, is it really gives permission for people to step into love for themselves, right? Show Your Spark is loving who you are internally. For me anyway, my fundamental understanding, external of the good opinions of anybody else, is how do you. So you said something in the beginning that I want to touch upon. What is your understanding of being empowered?
Hmm. Well, my understanding of being empowered is to listen to yourself and what you need and let that guide the rest. So that means caring for yourself, not running on empty. Obviously, there are times when we need to run on empty to get from point A to point B for that big mission, but like there are always small opportunities to stop and breathe. There's always time to breathe, drink water. So I think being empowered is one, being able to tune into yourself and ask yourself what you truly need, and also being able to pause amongst the busyness to do that because you know that you're worth that pause. And once you've tuned into that, having the agency to make those adjustments when you can. Like, I know sometimes we're in circumstances where we can't just be like, all right, I'm going to change everything right now. But just knowing that you trust yourself enough to make a plan, no matter how long that plan is, that you're going to honor what you truly need in the long term and the short term, and using your voice and doing things that bring you joy, like dancing in between Zoom calls, like I do in the studio, just throwing on the music. Like that to me is empowered, just shaking my body and feeling like a little silly, but I don't care because it raises up my vibration.
Preach. I mean, the previous business coach in me is loving life right now, because I try to encourage people all the time. You can incorporate joy in the monotony of the day all the time. You have to give yourself permission. And so I'm curious, for the listening audience, Lindsay, have you always felt empowered?
No.
So how is it that you stumbled upon your own, I guess, journey of towards or to empowerment?
Well, you know, it's funny. Sometimes we find ourselves in a line of work because that's the work that we really need to be doing ourselves. And that is something I found with Show Your Spark. Like, I got into this because I needed what I have to offer. And I am constantly like, ooh, I almost knocked my computer off. I'm constantly refining that and finding new levels. Like I'm in therapy right now working through some stuff, and I said to her, I can't believe I'm working through this. Like, look at what I do for a living. Shouldn't I have figured it out by now? And she's like, maybe that's why you do this for a living, because you are in it too. And so I feel like I used to think I was an imposter or a fraud because I'm not on the other side being like, hey guys, you can do it. Look at me over here. I did it. But I'm in it with people and figuring out what are the tools in our toolbox that we can pull upon at this moment in time. How can I set you up for success? Because I'm right there with you. And as being former business coach with me, that I wasn't always in this place too. So I love that you asked me that question.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, something that you said that I absolutely love so much. And I shared this on my live earlier, right? I'm not above perspectives or beliefs. It's just that I look at how I want to show up, fundamentally understanding that. And I allow myself to give my gift of being the human I am, and still making choices that feel more nurturing, gentle, and aligned for who I'm always surrendering into being, which is love, right? And I love that. And I think nobody has it figured out, which is why I think it's important to share our truth with people, because so often, you know, Lindsay has a Spark Studio. Kerri's a coach. I have coaches who are like, "Oh, I know I'm nowhere near where you are," and I'm like, "What are you talking?" That's like a made up story, and that's why I think it's important that you share that truth with people. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I see myself as a cycle breaker, and I'm constantly encountering new ways to continue to break those subconscious cycles for myself. And also, I try to think of ways that I can better serve my clients. So there's just so many levels.
Yeah, and so I'm curious. You know, I imagine you've had all walks of life come through the door of Spark, and me knowing you personally, I understand you have the ability to discern, right? You feel people's space, like the energy they bring into the room. How are you able to get women to step into their spark, to step into maybe a part of who they are, but they're not aware of quite yet?
That's a great question because sometimes people aren't aware that they're not aware of it until we start talking about it. And sometimes they're on that journey and they're ready to take that next step. So I ask hard questions to back it up a little bit. People don't just like book in through a link and then they're showing up for their session. Like we get on a call, we talk it through with them about what it is that would serve them best and ask some challenging questions that they might not have considered. Like, how do you want to feel when you look at these photos in 10 years? What do you want to be reminded about that's within you that some days you totally forget or overlook? But like we can help draw out and amplify through these photos. And of course, sometimes people are like, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. And sometimes they might be like, yeah, I'm not ready for this. And that's totally okay. I talk with my team about some clients' journey is longer. They might be in our orbit for literally years before they actually step into the studio. And I always can tell when they're ready because they're like, this is so far outside my comfort zone, but and then they fill in the blank, but I'm doing it anyways, but I know I need this, but I really want what I see in the other women on your website or your videos or your Facebook page. So it's like sometimes that journey is long, and sometimes people are like, yep, I know what I want, I'm ready, let's go.
That's me.
Yep.
I was like, "Oh, yeah." Like, and I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, it's so interesting you say that because I tell people all the time, I don't have an expectation of an outcome with the people I work with. If I did, then I am assuming that I know what is in the best interest for another individual, and I can't, and that's not my job. My job is to hold space for people to give themselves permission to get curious about themselves, and much like you said, break the cycles that don't serve them
Mhm.
and step into what feels right for them, not what feels right for me. And I think going back to show your spark in the interview questions that you ask is you start to allow women the ability to germinate on the questions, because when you're not aware of not being aware, being asked the question could be enough to be like, damn, I'm so disconnected from myself. I don't even know how I would want to present, which I think I run into more often than not in our society.
And that's okay. Like I tell people that this is like a part of the process. So after that phone call, if they're not really sure, but they know they want to know, like it's just the openness and a willingness to be curious and that self-compassion piece, right? So like after that, we have a wardrobe consult in the studio. So we come in and talk more about like what they might want to wear and start to visualize it. But even beyond that, the day of the session, I always tell people like I how do I frame this, Kerri? Like, so if someone has a fixed perception of themselves and how they're going to feel when they look in photos, for example, I always hate how I look in pictures. I always look terrible. I hate this. I hate that. I hate that. I tell people like straight up, if you've decided you're going to hate your photos, you will. But
You're
if
already
you're
gonna hate them.
open,
Yep.
yeah, and I can't change that for you. Like, I can't, that is internal. I try to do it without casting blame, but I say this is a collaboration. If you are open to the possibility that there might even be one photo where you're like, hey, that looks pretty good. Awesome. That let's go, let's do it. So it just is like it's a conversation, it's a willingness, it's also giving themselves that self-compassion to be open to the possibility that they might like something. That's a reflection on themselves more than me, the artist with a capital A. Like, I provide the tools and the setting, but really it's themselves in their own mirror that does the transformation. And afterwards, people sometimes say things like, "You're a magician." I'm like, "I'm not. This is you." But you allowed me to see that,
Yeah.
and that I appreciate.
Yeah, I love that. Something you said when you had the epiphany that you wanted to create something that culminated to show you spark is that you gave yourself permission. And I think that's really important when, I mean, in both of our works, right? Is ultimately, we're not really, we may be able to capture in different ways that person, the essence of that person, but it's up to them to give themselves the permission to allow that spark to be seen and to be, not even ignited, but like, showcased for others to see or even themselves, because it's really easy to let that spark go dim, but it never goes out.
Exactly. And that's why I call it show your spark, because that is the essence of it. It's like, even when that spark gets dim, it's still there. So let's create a touchstone for you to remember that when it is dim, of what
Yeah.
it looks like when you're shining.
So I do want to touch upon the fact that you are not only a business owner, but you're a relatively new mama. So how do you navigate self-care, empowerment while running a business and caring for others and meeting the needs of your beautiful son, who I know and love?
Well, I'm very lucky in that my son is a great sleeper. I'll just put that out there. He loves his sleep. And I also have a village. In this day and age, sometimes new moms are like, "Where's my village?" I am thankful that I have a village of support, of family and caregivers to help me show up so that I can be at the studio. And I know that's not true for all moms. And I feel super lucky to be able to step into these doors and give this my focus when I am here. And then I can be present with him at home. I try to put my phone away and like have that time blocked off. And I'll say I'm also glad he's a good sleeper, because I get a good night's sleep and I get up about like an hour and a half before he gets up every morning so that I can take my time. Like, the morning is sacred to me, and it has been since 2020 when I started developing these rituals of meditation, of moving my body. And it brought me through my pregnancy and through IVF and then my pregnancy and then as a new mom. And then I was able to, once we had his sleep schedule under control, able to like reclaim that time to do yoga, meditation, journal.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then show up in your glory to help support other people. So part of the reason I wanted to do this live one and now, which I think worked beautifully, is because I personally have signed on to be an ambassador for Fierce Over 40, your second annual uh event. I love it. Oh, and you got Melissa, who is a firecracker. For anybody who wants to know, she's so sweet. I love her. I want to talk about that. So, what prompted you to initiate a campaign for Fierce Over 40?
Yes. So the funny thing is, before I started this campaign, before I started this project, most people would come to me and say, "Oh, well, I can't do that. I'm not in my 20s. That's for young girls." And when they would hear, like, "Oh, I do boudoir," people have certain associations with what it means to take sexy photos. By the way, that's not all I do. Um, Powerful, strong, badass, whatever adjectives you want to use to describe yourself, that's what we do. But aside, I wanted to create a space for women specifically after 40 because there's all this amazing life experience and really anchoring down into who you are. And I'm 38, so I'm not quite in the 40 club, but I am so close. And I learn from all of my friends who are 40 and beyond. And I see that like shedding the layers of societal expectations, of insecurities that maybe weighed them down in the past, of what is expected. Oh, I need to follow this life path. And once women have reached 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, beyond, like they've said, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how I'm showing up. And so there are pages and pages of stories of women and what they've overcome and what has shaped their lives, has shaped how they show up. And I wanted to celebrate that and disrupt the societal conception that once you hit 40, you start to recede into the background and possibly disappear. Because I
Mm.
think it's BS that once you're beyond a certain age, you're no longer of use. Like, let's take that back. We're worthy as we are, and every stage of our life. And anyways, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but
Get
there's
on your soapbox. This is your time. Soapbox it up. Listen, everybody who listens to me for any amount of time knows I have a soapbox problem or gift, however you see it.
well, I think as women, we get put into these boxes of, and that correlate with many different things, but universally with stage of life. And 40 is when a lot of women start to feel like that stage of life that society has certain expectations on when you're in your 20s and 30s has passed. And then it's like, okay, yeah, stay back there, like you're done. Not true. There's so much more. There's like this amazing explosion of awakening and empowerment and truth telling and liberation that happens. And I wanted to celebrate that and learn from those women and have them learn from each other and inspire others who might not be there yet or just need to see that example.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I see so many empowered women, really of all ages. And I'll even, I'm going to venture into the fact that I see this in men too, because I love working with men. Because I think in their own right, they're boxed into specific areas. And, we lose sight of that sometimes, but particularly for women. And they don't see the gifts that they offer the world throughout them just being who they are.
Hmm.
They really don't. And so being able to see themselves, and picture their strength, but also seeing their story in a magazine and seeing other people impacted by their story really helps, I think, people step even further into their spark and giving them permission to continue to be seen and affirm themselves, because so often we're waiting for the world to affirm us when ultimately our strength lies in our ability to affirm ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I learned so much from these interviews from round one, and I'm already learning so much from round two. And it is about that. One woman called it F it 40s. She's like, this is me affirming myself, in that way and like releasing all of that expectation.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that. I think that expectation is the root of suffering. When you can just allow yourself to be, and not worry about the good opinion of others, is really where your true power lies, in just being who you are. And what I love about Show You Spark is when you look at the pictures, you see the uniqueness of each person. There's this emboldened strength, but like if I look at Melicia's picture versus Madison's picture or
mhm.
Brianna's picture, it,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this inner strength that is unique to them. Yeah, I mean, mic drop picture, right? It's so uniquely them, and yet it still ignites that spark in others to give themselves permission to start to be seen, heard, and take up space, which is super important.
Yes. Yeah, and it's why when I talk about, having an empowering experience here in the studio, something that we're always trying to nuance in the language is that I can't empower you. That's something that comes from within. No one can externally empower someone else. Like, that comes from within, but I can make those tools and create the uh the opportunities for them to find that for themselves, and that's why it's unique to everybody else, because nobody's the same.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when we step into our uniqueness, we're unstoppable, because because what we have to offer as the individual being that we are is the gift that I believe we were put here in this earth at this time to offer,
Mm.
not some boxed, conditioned, whatever. I also want to highlight that you've been part of Dove for a few years now, if I'm not mistaken. I remember when you talked to me about meeting with the board of Dove. Can you share with the listening audience what Dove is and why you've become a supporter of the work that they are doing?
Yeah, Dove is so this is their logo, and they it stands for Domestic Violence Ended, and they support the communities here near the studio, the adjacent communities on the South Shore near Quincy and beyond. And they are working to end domestic violence. And the reason why I love their approach and why I honestly include a portion of proceeds from every project that I can, or every event that we do, or like this weekend we're doing Headshots for Hope, and that's 100% of the proceeds going to Dove. It's because their approach is so what's the right word? Like, I want to say unilateral. Like, it's a very inclusive approach. Like, they start with educating kids at middle school level about what healthy and safe and respectful relationships and friendships look like, so that they can really start at that level. But they also, all the way beyond, offer like immigration support and legal services and housing, and like it's on every single level, like liaisons with the police departments. So it's not just one part of how domestic violence shows up. They really try to address it and find it at every level. And I know people personally who have benefited from that organization, and whose lives have changed because of it for the better. So honestly, it's an easy yes for me. Also, because they were like, yes, we love what you do. So as a business owner, I was excited to align with them because they were collaborative and really willing to hear my crazy ideas for, okay, so we're doing this. How do you feel if I, incorporate a fundraising aspect for you guys? They weren't afraid of partnering with us, which
Yeah.
I appreciate so much, because our missions are very aligned.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that so much. And so with that, some of the proceeds of the Fierce After 40s campaign, right, goes to Dove.
Yep. Yeah. Last year for round one, inclusive of the portion of proceeds from the sessions, as well as money raised at our culminating gala, we were able to raise almost $4,000 for Dove. We've already raised $2,000 this year through our Headshots for Hope campaign. So, and Fierce After 40 is really just heating up. So I'm really proud of the impact that the Show Your Spark community, I'm just a conduit for it. Like, I'm able to really bring that support to Dove.
So, okay, so let's talk about Headshots for Hope since it's going on really soon. What information or where can people find this?
Yeah, so we are doing it on Friday and Monday of this weekend. So kind of bookends to the weekend. It's pay what you want headshots. To be honest, we're almost, if not entirely, sold out, but we will be releasing other dates. So my goal with headshots for Hope was to make it an approachable price point for people who aren't ready for a full day session with us, because it's pay what you want, and all of the proceeds go to Dove. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I want to figure out a way to serve the community for people that need a new headshot for this or that and want to refresh their imagery so they can show up better as a more empowered version of themselves and raise money for Dove. So we did it in September, I think, was our first one. We have 2 dates in November, and I'm working on getting a date for December/January. My goal originally was once a quarter, but now I see we need to do it more often than once a quarter.
I love that. So even for people for next time you do it, what can they expect? Do they just show up and get a headshot? Like, share with the listening audience.
Oh, yes. So I try to make it super easy on our website. They book a time. It's 20 minutes. They get 3 digital photos. That's a current offer, 3 digital photos of my choosing, to make it really easy for them so they don't have to make any decisions. I'm just like, here are the 3 best ones. Here you go. They sign up for that time slot. They come in. Prior to coming in, as part of the booking process, they make their donation to Dove on our page, and then we just send out reminders for Friday so people know, remember when to show up, because they booked theirs like months ago. This filled up because there's a need.
Yeah, there is. I agree. Okay, so 2 more questions before I let you go. One, you're currently doing a giveaway, and the only reason I mention this is because it's a near and dear to me, given that my twin sister, who I appreciate and respect immensely, is a healthcare worker and worked on the front lines in a myriad of ways. So, can you talk to me about the inspiration of offering a giveaway to healthcare workers for a session? And I really don't know much beyond that because I just saw a healthcare giveaway and sent it off to people I love.
Oh, thank you as always for sharing. Yeah, I just wanted to be able to thank the amazing people in our community who are healthcare workers, and give away one inclusive session. But we also have like runners up finalist offers for people so that we can get more healthcare workers in to show themselves that care that they give to so many others. But yeah, my inspiration is personal and close to home. You know, the last 4 years, like so many people, has shown me the value of healthcare workers. But my own story was, you know, helping my grandfather through hospice as he passed away in 2021, starting fertility treatments and tests in 2021, and eventually going through IVF in 2022, and really being supported like every step of the way throughout that process by the amazing healthcare workers and doctors and healers. And like, healthcare workers encompasses therapists, Reiki healers, you know, acupuncturists, physical therapists, nurses, doctors. I've worked with so many people throughout my journey, and I just really wanted to say thank you to those people, because I know they put so much on the line and work long, long hours away from their family and often put their self-care last.
You nailed it. I have to tell you, healthcare workers, I find, my personal opinion, people, but are some of the people who don't prioritize their needs and quite often don't recognize the positive impact that they make, because when we're in the weeds, right, we're just doing what we naturally do without giving thought to, how truly life changing our efforts are towards others. So I really want to say thank you for honoring people who show up in service to other people, because as somebody who does that, you know being highlighted for that isn't why we do it, but I think it's a beautiful gift that you can offer people for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful to have so many nurses, doctors, like so many healthcare workers in our community, and honestly getting inspiration from them. Like in 2020, the majority of our sessions once we reopened were nurses. They were like,
Love that.
I haven't felt beautiful and I don't know how long. I am so ready for this. And I'm like, yay, get in here.
Yeah, preach. All right, last question. Well, okay, 2 more, I lied, but this one's the longer of the 2.
Okay.
What's next for you? Because really watching you continue to step into your truth and stuff, you really show up as a conduit, giving people permission to do the work and really step into what feels right for them. So what are some of Lindsay Height's goals personally?
Oh, well, something big is coming next year that will allow me to help my clients on the big picture version of their journey, which sounds vague, but I am empowering myself through education and increasing my toolbox to be able to show up in different ways for people that are looking for a transformative experience, on their own journey. So I'm looking forward to having more resources to support people mentally, emotionally as they enter this journey of finding their own empowerment, finding their voice, finding their power. So I'm doing a lot of education myself on that, and I'm excited to share more when the time is right, when it's more into fruition. Some of what that will look like is a Show Your Spark community off of social media, to be honest, and I want to have a way to show up and support people. In a more holistic, organic way that can just be about that and not with all the noise of social media. So that's one way that the Show Your Spark community can continue to thrive and have tools like, meditations that I'll provide and other mindset tools.
Yeah, I love that so very much. And something that I'll highlight for the listening audience is that you're continuing to grow and expand and learn for yourself, and that truly is how we empower others, is by continuing to empower ourselves. So it's one of the reasons I admire and respect you immensely, because you're continuously examining yourself and looking for ways to um learn and grow and heal and become, because we're constantly unfolding into just being. And that's
Mhm.
my understanding. Okay, last question. What's one thing that you know now that you would want to leave the audience with, that you think could serve them in stepping into more of what feels really good for them and feel more empowered for them?
So the first thing that popped into my head was feel the fear and do it anyways. And that is that your tattoo?
Yes, baby. Had it for 20 something years.
I didn't know that. I'll be honest, I did not know that after all this time. But that visually popped into my brain as you were talking, because I think I do mentor other photographers and some people who are like newer in their journey ask me questions. And I see a lot of people get hung up on on the how it's all going to play out and having that exact version mapped out before they take even one step. And I think to myself, if like 22-year-old me knew what it took to run a business, I don't think I would have done it. I would have been way too scared. I just jumped in not knowing. And I jumped in not knowing how to renovate a studio and we did it. Like I have felt the fear and done it anyways, because I think there's a difference between feeling fear and knowing it's not aligned, and feeling anxious because you know it's like not the right fit for you. But feeling the fear when you're like, ooh, this feels like butterflies. This is exciting, but holy crap, am I nervous? That's the fear you want to follow. And again, taking the next right inspired step. Because the world needs what you have to offer. The world needs your light. The world needs you to show up. And your self-limiting beliefs have kept you safe up until this point, but those are the things that are also your own self-made walls that are keeping you stuck. And if you want to go to the next place, being able to take that next inspired step, even if you don't know what the end result looks like, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to sum that up.
I mean, like, Mic drop. I mean, I truly believe you. I truly align with what you say, and I tell people all the time. I When I know, and I just dive right in. And people are like, you don't think it through, never. Because if I think it through, then I'm gonna cultivate fear, and there's a potentiality that I won't do it. But when I have a visceral knowing, I'm just gonna do it, and I know that I will figure it out as I go. And that has been the true gift that has helped me expand into who I am today. And I freaking love who I am today. So
Yeah,
I will.
and
So with that,
reconnecting.
guys,
Oh,
I am so honored that you guys all took time to listen, and please share your thoughts. I will be adding Lindsay's contact information in the show notes if you want to reach out to her studio, learn more about Show Your Spark, or the Fierce After 40 campaign, or the giveaway. I don't know if you're still doing that, or headshots in the future, or all the things. You'll certainly have the ability to reach out to Lindsay and her team, which they're all amazing, by the way. Shout out to Michelle, Catherine, and Jen, whom I love immensely.
and Serena now.
But I don't know you, Serena, so much love. Um, and yeah, until next time, I'm going to hit end on this stream, guys, and I will check you for another edition of What's Your Story.